We're going to move to the next session where we're going to talk about case studies, short talks. We're going to start with our own Ryan Maduramente talking about transplant and the elderly patient. Thank you, Ryan.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan. I'm one of the transplant coordinators, and I'll be talking about transplant in the elderly. So I usually start our education classes when we see our patients initially by telling them that transplant is not a cure for end-stage renal disease. The life-saving treatment is dialysis, but for appropriate patients, it's a lot better way of managing it, and there is a evidence of a longer survival benefit for them. But unfortunately, because of the organ shortage, there's a lot more people that need a transplant, and the wait time is super long, especially in our region. It's about 5 to 8 years, depending on your blood type. So we've made it our mission to remove barriers to transplant. And I know Dr. Roshan spoke earlier about using kidneys from older donors, DCD or high KDPI kidneys. So I'll talk about a recent patient that we have and his transplant journey. So just to review, all donors are assigned a score between 0 to 100%. That's called the KDPI score. And it's a measure of how long a kidney is likely to function compared to other kidneys. So the lower scores mean that the kidneys are likely to last longer, and higher scores are considered to be lower quality marginal kidneys or quote unquote overlooked kidneys. And conversely, our patients, all the recipient candidates, they're assigned an EPTS score, or what we call the estimated post-transplant survival score, where patients with lower scores are likely to have the longest time to benefit from a transplant. And the intent is to match patients that need a kidney longer with a kidney that'll last longer, which is good for, all the younger patients. But what does that mean for the elderly patient? Should they wait 5 to 8 years on dialysis, waiting for a perfect kidney that may never come? We find that there is benefit to using these overlooked kidneys, especially for the elderly patients, because it's likely their best chance at getting a transplant, unless they had a living donor. But that's another talk. I want to talk about our case study here, YS. So with YS, at the time of listing, he was 70 years old with medical history of hypertension and diabetes, also with prostate cancer and remote stroke history. His blood type B, which is more common in minorities. And, Dr. Suresh mentioned earlier that they do wait longer than most people. And he had less than 2 years of dialysis time. But despite all this, he had a good heart, literally, like his echo and stress tests were fine. So we felt that he was strong enough to receive a transplant. And this is his unit listing. So when we put him on the list, his EPTS score ended up being 92%. So remember, higher scores mean that they have less time to benefit from a transplanted kidney. So that made him, on the higher end of the spectrum. But he got a kidney transplant in May last year, and it was from a DCD donor in their 60s. The KDPI score was 81%. Higher score typically means it's a lower quality kidney, and that the kidney initially, if you look, had a creatinine of 2.36, but by the time they had procured the kidney, it was under 1. And when you look at the screenshot over there, that's actually the acceptance that we took the right kidney. 974 people said no to this kidney. So, we felt that despite the high initial creatinine, everything else looked good. It was pumping well, and let me see if and it didn't have too much cold time. And he was transplanted on May 16, 2022. And as a follow-up, on the last time we saw him last month, YS was actually doing really well. His best creatinine was 1, most recently 1.2. He was making a good amount of urine and is, living his best life, doing whatever 71-year-old people do. So we were happy, and he was happy that he received that kidney. And to wrap things up, we really believe that age, whether it be the donor or the recipient, should not be a barrier to transplant. with good patient selection, well-selected, quote unquote, overlooked kidneys. We can maximize access to transplant. And, Dr. Roshan mentioned earlier that, based on our SRTR most recent data, 15% of our newly listed patients were over 70 years old. And they make up 9% of our overall list now. So, we remain committed to providing transplants in our community. Even with the elderly patients, they're the most underserved and overlooked in this area, especially.
Thank you, Ryan.